A lot of people tend to do that because they think that, I need to
More better.
acoustically treat it. Yeah, more better, which is really not how acoustics works.
Right.
But like I said, it's about comfort, and comfort always has a threshold, both an upper limit and a lower limit lah.
Welcome to the One Day at a Time podcast, where we take things one day at a time. Today in the studio, we have Edric.
Hello.
Hey, Edric, you want to do a quick introduction about yourself?
So I'm Edric, and I run an acoustics company called ehka with my partner Kelvin. We handle a lot of acoustic treatment for F&B spaces, home studios, living spaces, offices as well.
Nice. Okay, so Edric is actually a audio professional and has been working with audio, like mixing, mastering for a long time. And is that the reason why you decided to go into acoustics?
It is the reason it started because from all my audio work previously, obviously we set up our own studio, at Grid. And from there, that's when people started to realize that acoustics sort of made a difference because they came to Grid and they're like, hey, this space sounds nice. How come it sounds so good? That kind of thing. So we designed all the acoustics from scratch. So eventually came to a point where people were asking me to sort of design their studios for them because they visited Grid. And then, we started with one studio, which was a school. Then shortly later, we designed like another full-fledged, like a 5-room production studio. And it just sort of picked up from there. That's when I realized, with my partner Kelvin, hey, this could actually be sort of a thing we could do more regularly since people are always coming to us to design studios. It was after those first 2 projects that we decided to set up the company.
Okay, so if somebody doesn't really understand what acoustics is, how would you explain it to them?
So acoustics is basically how, I think to a personal, more consumer level, it's how you feel in a space based on what you hear around you. Because sound is sort of a subconscious thing to people. So acoustics is how comfortable you sort of feel in a space because of either the too much sound there is or too little sound there is going around you. So being able to hold a conversation, without raising your voice, like for example in this space, we don't have to talk very loudly to hold a conversation and hear each other. Or being able to hold, like in a cafe, how loudly you can hear the tables like 5-6 meters away from you.
Right.
That kind of comfort level is what acoustics is to me lah.
Right. I think quite a lot of people, including people who just start to get into maybe beginner audiophiles or even beginner musicians, I think there's always this misconception between acoustic treatment and soundproofing.
Of course.
Right. Can you do a quick explanation on what is the actual difference between soundproofing and acoustic treatment?
In short, soundproofing is whether or not you can hear the noise outside, the construction work outside, the dogs barking, whether or not people outside can hear the music you're playing inside your room, inside your space. That's soundproofing. Acoustics is how well you can hear your speakers inside your room. So if you have like a home theater setup or if you have a music production setup, how accurately are you hearing the bass notes or the guitars or how accurately are you hearing the explosions? Or like in like a sci-fi film, the glass breaking, all the dialogue especially, most importantly. So how well you hear all those within the space is acoustics.
Right.
And whether or not people outside hear you is the soundproofing. So
would you say that good acoustics is essentially for the accuracy of how we consume audio, multimedia?
From audiophile or like a music production perspective, yes, that's exactly what it is. From a more consumer perspective, it's about comfort lah.
Right.
Yeah.
So acoustics are something that is commonly seen in not just professional music or film studios, right? Like for example, meeting rooms. So who actually needs acoustic treatment? So like if, let's say I'm starting a cafe or I have an office, how much should someone take acoustic treatment into consideration when designing their workspace?
So I think acoustic treatment should be based on the priority and the use of the space. So if the use of the space is going to entail a lot of like conversations or a lot of like, obviously in these days we Zoom meetings, online meetings, then acoustics is very important because conversation is all about communication. Communication is all about being able to clearly present something to somebody else and be able to hear them accurately so that there's no misinformation or miscommunication. So if the space is going to be used for a lot of communication, conversation, acoustics is very important.
Right.
If it's like a space where people are just supposed to go there and like chill on their own, on like their headphones, it's not meant for people to go in and talk and gather, then it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
Because it's not going to be a lot of sound going around.
Right. How about places like, so like whatever you have described is places like maybe like cafes, meeting rooms.
Yeah.
How about places where there is like loud music playing and conversations going on? Let's say like a nightclub. Like, is acoustics important because it's just so freaking loud and so freaking noisy anyway? Does good acoustic treatment in a nightclub make a difference?
So for clubs, like party venues, then it comes down to priority. If you want your guests to feel you want to play music loudly, but you don't want your guests to feel uncomfortable with the amount of acoustic like loudness of sound of the loudness of the speakers that's going on, then acoustics is important.
Right.
If that's not your priority at all, right? If you just want to play the music loudly, you don't really care about the people who come in. Like if you want high turnover rate, you want them to come in, buy as much alcohol, and then get out so that the next group can come in,
right?
Then acoustics is probably not that important.
Right. So actually, thinking about acoustic treatment, how much acoustic treatment to do, as well as what type of acoustic treatment to do, largely depends on the purpose of the business and the consumer.
Yeah.
So more and more so these days, there are a lot of people that are considering acoustic treatment for recreational purposes, right? Like not even like a home theater, but just in the living room where most people just have like a sound bar and they watch like TV and things like that. Do you think that is something that really enhances the experience, especially when most apartments and HDB flats in Singapore is like so freaking small, right? So do like a couple of acoustic panels really enhance the experience in your experience?
Yes, but to me, acoustics for a living room, for a home, is not so much about the experience of how good your TV sounds or your soundbar sounds. It's more about the comfort you feel in your own space at home. Especially these days, a lot of people have pets, right? Like dogs is such a common thing nowadays. Yes. So like when they bark very loudly, in your home, there are times where they can bark to a point where it becomes slightly like painful, almost painful to your ears because it's so loud.
Right.
And then, you're trying to have a conversation with your partner or your friends while your dog is barking loudly. So things like these, acoustics make a big difference because it can tone down a lot the amount of sound that's reverberated around the whole room to a point where things are not uncomfortable even though they are loud. Yeah, so it's more about that. Obviously, accuracy of how good your TV sounds and soundbar sounds is an added benefit on top of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so essentially, acoustic treatment is a process of, I guess, fixing the room or making it more comfortable in some way. And the way in which you do that is by using certain tools like acoustic panels, right? Which is, I guess, the main product that you guys sell. So acoustic panels, how are acoustic panels actually made? Because, right, there are some YouTube videos, there are some like old films, right? They show people like just pasting eggshell, the egg carton things on their wall and use that as acoustic treatment. So how is, I guess, like a weird jagged surface different from a professional acoustic panel?
So acoustics is obviously the treatment of sound, right? And sound is I'm trying to not be too scientific. Sound is energy, right? It's energy. Yes. And because sound is energy, it takes a certain amount of mass to stop that energy. Things like eggshells, they don't work. They work, but at very, very high frequencies. So sound is broken up into frequencies, right? And our dialogue frequencies are usually around maybe 600 hertz to 4K, the main body of it. Eggshells would probably work for frequencies at like, I don't know, maybe 18K and up. The reason why they do that is because the higher frequencies have less energy than lower frequencies, right? And eggshells, because they're so thin, they're made of like the fiber, the paper fiber.
Right.
They don't really do much because they don't have mass.
Right.
So acoustic products are made of a specific type of mineral wool, and we have various different densities of them, and the different densities and the way we assemble them affect the specific frequency range that they absorb well.
So what exactly is mineral wool?
Mineral wool is basically
It's not like cotton, right? It's
No,
like
it's not. The type we use is made predominantly from volcanic ash. So it's
Is that common? Or is something that's quite unique to you guys?
Not, yeah, it is common lah. It's not. I mean, it's a type of mineral that's commonly made. Because previously, a lot of people use glass fibers.
Right.
But over the years, they've been known to have health implications.
Yeah.
So we use the volcanic ash type, which has no health implications.
I see. Yeah.
As long as it's constructed properly.
Because I think in the past, a lot of acoustic panels or like rather treatment like the stuff that is stuffed between walls is actually rock wool, which causes a lot of allergy issues and stuff like that. Like
there are various versions of that as well. There are some which are which are okay for your health.
Right.
And then in the past where knowledge about it was not that common, then there have been a lot of issues where you get health issues from them, health problems from them.
So mineral wool is I guess
I mean, rock wool is a variant of mineral wool.
Right. The mineral wool that you use is made from volcanic ash.
Yes, that's one of the primary substances inside.
Right. How much does it cost usually on a general basis, like worldwide, to produce a single acoustic panel of high quality with mineral wool?
Probably around maybe 100 to 120.
Yeah, USD.
USD, yes, USD.
And the acoustic panel is not just comprised of the mineral wool, right? There's like the wood, the frame, and then like the stuff that basically there's a bunch of stuff that goes into constructing an acoustic panel. Is there like a standard size for acoustic panels, or like it really depends? It really depends.
I mean, you'll notice that the most common ones, the good ones made out of a type of mineral wool are usually like a 600 mm by 1200 mm size, right? So it's like a 60 cm by 1.2 meters. Just because majority of the mineral wool in the world is manufactured to that size. Because it is convenient for construction purposes.
Right.
So a lot of companies build it to that size just so that we don't have to cut it up. We don't have to throw in extra process in our assembly lah.
Right.
But realistically, we can make it in any size.
Right. So say like I'm a regular consumer, I just want to kind of acoustically treat my home so that when I have gatherings or like just hanging out at home, it feels comfortable, right? So how much do you think it would cost somebody who say has a 4-room HDB flat or like a 3-bedroom condo to acoustically treat their living room?
So a typical HDB living room, I'd say minimally about $600 to $800 for the acoustic treatment. Right. Or if you're looking for something like you're a guy that hosts a lot of gatherings like every week, or a lot of mahjong tends to get loud. Right. Then I'd say maybe 1,000 to 1,500. Right.
So actually the other question that I think a lot of people will ask is, can they even tell the difference?
Most people can. Obviously, I mean, we've met people who are really oblivious and clueless to what goes on sound-wise. But majority of people who we work with can tell quite a big difference lah.
Right.
With their
because
spaces.
It's more of a feeling than audible, right?
Yeah, because it's subconscious. Because sound has always been a secondary thing to most people, right? Sight is sort of our first main primary sense. So it's subconscious to a lot of people. But once we go in and treat the place, it suddenly becomes conscious to them because they actually feel.
Right, you feel a difference. Yeah. Because I mean, my own home as well. I mean, you did my living room, right? Obviously. So, but I also noticed when I first got the home, like, and when you talk a little bit louder at a certain frequency, there will be this boom boom sound, right? So like to the average person, I guess it's quite soft lah. You cannot really. But as the people gets more, as the crowd gets more, it can get a bit annoying because everybody's talking and there's this boom sound at the back. So with the acoustic panels, it sort of solves that issue, right? Yeah. So the question is, like, without being too scientific, right? How do acoustic panels work? Okay, so I don't really know how to explain this. I kind of, because when people come to my house, they're like, what are these things hanging on the ceiling, right? Now it's like, they're acoustic panels. So what do? Oh, I just say, so they usually think that, these things absorb sound, but that's not exactly how it works, right?
It's pretty much how it works. It absorbs sound. The sound energy gets trapped inside, converted into heat.
Right.
It's just that it happens at such a minute level, you don't feel a temperature change. It's like a 0.001 degree
Okay.
increase.
And then the
kind of
heat just dissipates after.
It dissipates because heat dissipates faster than it gets generated.
Right. So do acoustic panels reflect sound at all, or like they just absorb a bit, reflect a bit?
Yeah, so there are types that reflect sound. Depending on the use of the space, we implement accordingly.
Right.
But usually the types that reflect sound, they are more catered to production spaces. So
Like diffusers and stuff.
Yeah, so like higher critical listening environments where we don't want too much absorption. Then we
So
implement
regular consumer use acoustic panels are essentially just how many panels you use, how big the panels you use just determines how much sound is being absorbed, and then the rest just reflects off the rest of the surfaces.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you don't want to absorb every single thing because then it becomes awkward.
Right, yeah. So the question I want to ask next is there such a thing as over treating a room?
Yes, very common actually. A lot of people tend to do that because they think that, I need to
More better.
acoustically treat it. Yeah, more better, which is really not how acoustics works.
Right.
But like I said, it's about comfort, and comfort always has a threshold, both an upper limit and a lower limit lah.
Right.
Yeah, so over treating a room will make it sort of you get more awkward silence lah. You know what I mean?
Right. Because you cannot hear the environmental.
Yeah, where things are too quiet. So for spaces which are general consumer use like living rooms, we usually try and recommend the minimum required, which is usually mostly ceiling treatment. Maybe it's 25% to 40% of the ceiling kind of thing. Things where more critical listening is required. Are you doing like a home theater or music production room? Then obviously you need wall panels as well on top of the ceiling panels. So it depends on the use of the space, but too much treatment can destroy the comfort level in the room as well.
Right. So, like just now you mentioned that for a regular consumer, about $600 to $800 could would treat quite well. The room can be treated quite well, right? So far in your entire, acoustics career, what is the largest project that you have done?
You mean for a home, or you mean
just in general, like the largest, like you just have a lot of acoustic panels and it's a relatively complicated job?
Music studio. All our biggest projects are all music studios. Yeah, all of them are music studios.
Like professional music production, film studios.
Yeah, because those are the ones that require the highest spec of our panels. They require a combination of the diffusers and the absorbers. And they require a lot of planning in terms of the placement of the panels and all that. Like when it comes to consumers or like cafes, all that, placement is not as critical. But when it comes to music production spaces where critical listening is required, the position of the panels are critical as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And do you guys usually, so you provide consultation services and you provide essentially the service of providing the panels as well, right? Does it usually mean that the more panels you have, the more expensive the job will be? Or it really depends on the expertise required as well?
So for music production spaces, where we have to plan, we plan for a lot of things. We plan for electrical, for lighting, because those affect the placement of our panels as well.
Because you cannot block the lights with the...
Yeah, exactly. So those do tend to cost more. So it's not really about having more panels.
Right.
But in the case of like cafes or homes, then more panels, more expensive. Because there's not a lot. We don't charge consultation fee for those because there's not a lot of planning.
So you don't need a lot of consultation. It's just like placing the panels
it's just about
places that
general, placing them generally over certain areas. Yeah.
So the panels are essentially either on the walls or on the ceiling, right? What happens if I shift? Like my cafe wants to move, and can you bring the panels with you?
Yeah. So we design our panels with the idea of you being able to take them with you lah. Our company emphasizes a lot on sustainability. So we try to reduce wastage even when you need to take your pen, if you need to move away. We don't want people to just leave them there and the next person doesn't need them and throws them away. So we assist with the move as well. We try and reuse as much hardware as possible. A lot of the materials we use inside our panels, to do with the frames, with the fabrics, we try and ensure are sourced sustainably through our suppliers.
Is there a shelf life to an acoustic panel?
No. You can
forever.
They will last until you die or hand them down to somebody else, yes.
Oh, really? Why?
The mineral wool is inert. So it being inert means it doesn't decompose. And you can move it around infinitely lah. I mean, if you
Right.
drop it from a truck, okay, then maybe it will like spoil. and
Okay,
all
yeah,
that,
right. As long as you take care of it.
yeah, as long as you take care of it, it will last a very, very, very long time.
Wow. So essentially, somebody can just, I guess, acoustically treat their home, purchase panels from you guys, and when they shift, or if they shift to a bigger place, they just buy more panels and essentially just use them for a lifetime.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow. Actually, I didn't even know that. Okay. Cool. So like, is there anything that someone who is looking to acoustically treat their room need to know about the maintenance of it? Because part of it is made with wood, right? And like being in a very humid country, is there anything that we need to take note on, like maintaining the panels?
Not really. Maintenance is quite straightforward. Most people don't do anything.
So you just leave it alone.
Just leave it there. Some people like to vacuum it. You can vacuum the fabric because it's a fabric, so you can lightly vacuum it. You
Right.
can dust it if you want.
Right.
Unless you reside in a highly humid environment. I mean, most of our clients, because of the room they're using it for, there's going to be air conditioning, right? So the air conditioning will naturally reduce the humidity in the space.
Right.
When you switch off the aircon, it goes up, but it only goes up for a while, right? And then when you come in again another day, you switch it on, it goes back down. So it's really not an issue.
Right.
We've never done any treatment for outdoor spaces yet. So we don't know how the panels will hold up in outdoor spaces. But usually outdoor spaces don't need acoustic treatment because they're open. So sound just dissipates and then it goes. Yeah, so you don't really need treatment.
Okay. I have another question. This is a personal curiosity. There are quite a lot of residential or even commercial spaces with like extremely high ceiling, right? So obviously, because just now you also mentioned that ceiling treatment is one of the most common and most, I guess, important things to consider. So does the height of the ceiling affect the types of panels that you use or how big the panels are? Like, I'm just quite curious.
So the height of the ceiling affects the amount of surface area we'll need to cover for the ceiling. Our ceiling absorbers are one of the more standard products in our range. The ones that we usually need to tweak are the wall absorbers because these affect different frequencies a lot more than ceiling panels. So the ceiling panels are quite standardized in terms of the range of frequencies they absorb and how well they absorb them.
So if say like someone lives in a house with like a double volume ceiling, very high one, and you still install ceiling panels, right? And you do that, but it would be basically very, very difficult for them to clean or take it down.
Yes,
You will need
if it's a double volume space, it's more
right.
difficult.
You would
to
probably
maintain.
need a contractor with like some equipment to remove them if you are shifting lah.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. I mean, we're usually so far for all our clients who've shifted, they usually engage us back.
Oh, to do the new place, then you help them.
Then we help them remove the old one and all that. Yeah.
I see. Okay, so far, right? Do you have any particular clients or a particular homes or commercial spaces that you have done that is particularly enjoyable for you? Or are they all enjoyable?
I say a good 80% of them are enjoyable.
Okay. And the remaining 20% is because it's very challenging, or like
usually the remaining 20% is because of the client.
yeah. As with most businesses.
Not so much about the challenge of the acoustics of the space.
Right. Do you think like acoustics is something that will continue? Because right now in every industry, right, there's a lot of talk on like technology and AI like affecting the industry. Whereas what you do, like acoustics, is something that is still quite. I mean, you still need a physical person down for consultation and things like that.
Yeah.
Do you see technology affecting your industry in any way, whether it's positively or negatively?
I think technology affects every industry.
Yeah.
So in many ways.
Yes.
And positively or negatively depends very largely on how each individual sees it. I think technology will definitely. There's technology being developed around the world that, to do with soundproofing, that prevents sound from moving from one space to another without any physical medium being placed in like in between the two spaces. So you can have a big open space. And they try to prevent sound from bleeding to different sections of the space, either just by air or by some form of noise cancelling technology going on.
Right.
So there are all these things being taken into happening around the world. Obviously, I think it's cool because personally I love technology, and I like to see how it develops. Whether or not it will largely affect the acoustics industry is hard to say, because acoustics is like, to me, I take it sort of like a personal thing. When we're tuning and fixing up people's spaces, we do like to go in and listen to the space. We listen to not just like conversation, we listen to music in the spaces as well, so that we know that, hey, this music feels good to us, so it should definitely feel good to a lot of other people as well. So it's somewhat personal, and I think the value that we bring on that front will never sort of be overtaken by some form of technology.
Right.
Even though we may implement technology in our process,
Right, for sure, yeah.
but we will still have that sort of personal touch to it, regardless lah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if someone is looking to acoustically treat their home or acoustically treat their commercial space or studio, is there a number or like a website or like a place where people can reach out to you and share it?
So the best place to reach us is on our IG, our Instagram, which is ehkaf on Instagram. Or if you want to go to our website, it's ehkaf.com.
So how do you actually pronounce that? I mean, I always pronounced it wrongly last time, but how do you actually pronounce that?
So it's actually pronounced ehka, F. Ehka is basically me and my partner's initials. This is Edric Hwang and Kelvin Ang.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Cool.
and then F is because we both love music and we both have a music background, so F is the forte.
Oh, cool. Wow, you actually thought this through.
Fortissimo, yeah.
Cool, Eka S.
Sort of started to, yeah.
Nice. All right, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you
and
for having
sharing
me.
your experience with acoustic treatment. So if you're keen on treating your home just for a nicer experience, like these days we work very hard. It's all about just having a nicer life, whether you are hanging out with friends at home or having a music studio. Please reach out to Edric at Eka F. I'll leave the description of his social media and everything in the description down below. And we'll see you next time on the One at a Time podcast. Peace.
Thank you.